American trading session. It is 11th of November, Monday, as you can see. So I've already conducted the analysis and arrived at the conclusion of the direction. Oh my god. Well, we'll wait for that. Bloody hell. In fact, you know what? I'm not waiting for it. So, we've concluded the direction of which is most probable to prevail over the time period of 3 to half 4. And as a result, how I must then see the 1 hour setup to go on side with that, and how that is to see the market retrace to this region, 15M nice bar close, and then just look for a 15M sufficient anatomic bar close after you've got that. And that's the same for the euro, which I really doubt is going to happen. I really doubt we're going to get a retrace up to here. But this is the thinking behind it. Let me just so I've also got Tom in the background too. Tom, oh god. But I'll quickly go through the approach. So what I was talking to myself was just before is like the way a at hand push and play is set up as of now, like how we interpret how it is set up and the momentum that's poised to unravel is based on that, but it's also based on how at that moment next step higher time frame chart perspectives at hand pushes are set up to continue to push. Like, so it's like the context extrapolated slash derived from each of the time frames we look at that influences how we interpret, for example, how the 1 hour set up right now. So anyway, I guess we'll start off on the monthly, and then we'll just work our way down. And I'm gonna just keep it quick. I'm gonna try to keep it quick. Of course, you'll see how long it is at the bottom after the fact. But in real time moment of me speaking, I don't know. I'll just try and keep it short. But anyway, so this is the previous at and push's range, and then this is the in play at and push. What's in play? Obviously, we look at how the market set up as of the most recent bar close. Now we have to remember too that where within the duration that this time frame bar covers, we are in. It's like near the start, right? So, it's relatively early days for the monthly bar, but it's like it's already expanded quite nicely, you know. So ideally, what I would like to see is either this for longs. I would like to see the monthly just really pummel lower below this low, and leave a nice wick, and maybe start the incline, right? And then next step lower time frames, start to then set up like their and push poison for the upside, you know, poised to push to the upside as of the next month. And then you start to get a bit of a rally going, potentially up to maybe like this region, and then you sell off, because like I just feel that this overall at push on the monthly from this low to this high, and then you kind of got I just kind of factor in the one thing. I reckon it's gonna come. I reckon this region will be seen again. So yeah, I wrote this region, so like the 1.01 level. I just feel it. I can't explain why, but at the end of the day, I don't trade based on them feelings. I'm aware of them, but then ultimately assess how the Atan push itself is set up, and whether it points towards, for example, potentially pushing to that region. So yeah, so this is obviously what we're looking at as of the most recent bar close relative to this time frame. Now it does look like this atom push to the upside is done, and it's likely to continue to push lower. Now obviously we would verify that based on the fact that we've just came off from pushing to the upside, and we've got some wick rejections. We've just came off from pushing to the upside. So you'd want to check if next step lower time frames too are set up in that fashion to push lower, and they were. Um, so yeah, so I mean, like this bar is near the end, closer to the end of being done than not. Now, with how the monthly setup, even looking like looking at how the monthly in play, looking at how the monthly chart setup as of the in play bar's current setup state, and then looking at the 2 week bar close, well, it's like it's near looking at the 2 week bar, where looking at the 2 week chart with regard to like where it is, within the time duration that it like is set to encapsulate, like in regards of like think of like a loading bar. I can't describe it quite properly. I'm going to work on that. But like think of like a loading bar. This bar is like, well, you could do the percentage of how close it is to being done versus not, and it's close. But just based on the day, it's closer to being done than not. So it's likely to probably set up and close somewhat like this, if not more better for the downside. But if it did close like this, number one, you've closed in the. You need to be aware of where this current atom push structured the way it is, its angle, its trajectory, it's following as of the most recent bar close, and how the most recent bar close closes like amongst the existing structure of the atom push, where that spans over the most recent previous atom pushes range. Uh, and this is the low, this is the high. You've closed in the entirety, you're now trading below the low. Now you are in territory for where a reaction could take place. What is a reaction? It's where the atom push itself, where it pushes into an area where reactions tend to take place. For example, into an imbalance, into a zone, into a support resistance flip, into a fib level, in below a low, or above a high, and then the atom push itself starts to structure itself in a fashion where it looks like it could potentially be done. Now, so we focus on the structure. We really focus when it's pushed into an area like this, and on how the atom push is set up and whether it is set up in a fashion that's likely to continue pushing lower, or reverse its direction and have a reaction. For example, be done pushing and possibly start pushing to the upside, aka have a reaction, right? So some people just use a reaction in terms of like this, for example, like you come up to level, you give it a wick rejection. I just I like yeah, I just call it a wick rejection, or like a I do sometimes refer to it as a reaction, but typically when I'm referring to a reaction, 85% of the time I'm referring to when the push is pushed into an area what coincides with the atom push being set up in a fashion where it looks like it's being done pushing, which is coinciding with unfolding at an area where reactions tend to unfold from. And uh, so yeah, this the way this push is set up. Because what I'd also tend to do is when the relative time frame being looked at, obviously I always look and consider how it's set up as of the most recent bar close. For example, right here of how the chart's set up, because that's the current picture technically speaking. But when the bar is close, when the in play bar, meaning like the bar that's in play right now, and like it's not, the word wouldn't be prevailing, but like like because that means kind of like winning and coming through. But the bar that's like in play now, and subject to however participants trade now in regards of its formation, like when it's closer to being done, I like to consider how the atom push is set up with how that in play bar is set up when it's basically done pushing. Of course, it's still got 4 days, but relative to the 2 week time frame, it's closer to being done. So anyway, how it's set up, it's likely to keep pushing lower for sure. Look at the trajectory; its angle does not look done pushing. It looks like there's going to be way more structure formed to the push, which would follow and coincide with that potential case of pushing below this very nice low. So to be fair, like if you just picture where within the trajectory the next bar to be in play would be, like here, how that's poised to unravel is subject to how the push is structured and angled, and how the most recent bar close like amongst existing structure and angle state of the push in play. Now, how that so we can get an idea and ascertain how that bar may form, but we also must consider where within the current trajectory phases of the atom push what it's currently like followed in up to now, the next bar would be in. And like for example, if like emulating situations like hypothesizing situations within your head, or scenarios within your head of how, if the bar closed bullish, how would the chart look like. But is it going to really push bullish? Is it going to really close bullish when you got a push set up like this? It could, but relative to the 2 week chart, it's not likely. So anyway, Dropping down weekly, this is how the weekly chart's set up. It's relatively early days. I swear it's literally Monday. Yeah. Okay. Yes, but anyway, as of the most recent weekly bar close, the chart is like the trajectories like came back again. So as of this as of when this bar closed, and you were like you just operating within this bar being your in play bar, you'd be looking at how this chart set up. Now look, you got this atom push relative to like this atom push, which is like still the atom push in play. You've got this um previous atom pushes range. Now compare this structure of this atom pushes range with this atom push. Where's this atom push unfolding? How's it structured whilst it's unfolding below this low and high? It's like right below, you know, and it just keep expanding lower. That's likely to be the case for. It's likely to continue to be the case. If you also look at how the atom push is set up, where it's setting up outside, like relative to structure points outside of it, the previous atom pushes range, it's coming in. It's set up nice to keep pushing lower around these lows, which makes sense to gun for these lows, quote unquote. That's kind of an idiom or idiom. I've got no idea how to pronounce it, but IDIOM. So 3D looks. Look at this. This just looks really good. So non-sufficient candle quantity push, but sufficient candle quantity, well below the previous atom pushes range low and high, and close in the previous range atom push range in its entirety. Well below the low is the push setup in a fashion that looks done pushing. No, this just looks like a further ensuing push to the downside, especially with how next higher time frames are set up. This looks like it's got plenty more to go, but as operating as of the most recent bar closing, how the subsequent bar is poised to unravel. It's poised to primarily push lower. 2-day. Well, just skip that because it's closer being done, to be fair, and I don't really like looking at a chart when I'd rather just consider other time frames, to be fair. But yeah, daily looks bearish. So it just looks like it just looks like it's gonna trickle lower slowly in terms of the daily. So like a slow push relative to daily. So that's like just gradually pushing lower over like 4 hour time periods basically. So that would be slow in context of the daily. So as of the 16 hour bar close, it closes at the key time period basically. The prior to the key time period, which in the afternoon for me is 3 till half 4. This looks poised to keep pushing lower, although it's in an area for a reaction. It still looks like it's going to keep pushing lower.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, my brilliant call in the Dow was spot on. But hey, you don't get anything for being the one that calls it out, but not trading it.
12 hour, same thing. 8 hour, same thing. Confirms the fact that although this is what I mean. How the 8 hour set up, we derive context from immediately in that moment of dropping to the 8 hour. I'm just gonna turn Tom off, respectfully. But yeah. So like as we are looking at how the market set up as of a particular key time period comprehensively, as of like okay, the 16 hour, 12, all them time frames, looking at them at one like spurt of time, like we derive context for how the particular time frame is set up the way it is, right? So how how the 8 hour setup right now, we derive context from next higher time frame, and it's just poised to keep pushing lower. It doesn't look done pushing. It still looks like it's going to keep extending to the downside, which we would be like keeping aware of bar by bar. So like that could be subject to change as of the next bar potentially. But as of this most recent bar close, how the atom push is structured, it's poised to keep pushing lower. The 4 hour, same thing, just poised to keep pushing lower. We interpret how the 4 hour chart is set up with the context of how the next higher time frames are set up. How this atom push is set up, it's just supposed to keep pushing lower. 2 hour, same thing. 1 hour, I've already looked at it, that's why I'm immediately said it. And then 1 hour, the same thing. But the 1 hour doesn't really matter how it's set up. What matters is how the for the afternoon, the two, particularly the 4, the 8, the 12, 16 daily, and then the rest of next higher time frames are set up. And then how, as a result of the market, how it's set up as of 3 in the afternoon, how would be most optimal to see the 1 hour setup from how it is set up, to go on side with the most probable direction that's poised to unravel over that particular key time period I specialize in. And the market sat right at the lows of that and push to the downside. Do I sell these lows? No, we do not. Yeah, so you would be looking for 15M candle close rejection in this area, and then just a sufficient amount to make bar close.